I'm Jason Klamm, and this is the Comedy on Vinyl podcast. The year is 1973, the album, the Monty Python Matching Tie and Handkerchief, the group, Monty Python, and my guest is Terence Bowman. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So people might know you from the Vestibules, formerly Radio Free Vestibule, which I think is how I must have heard you first, because I know I heard of you first through that Dr. Demento compilation years ago.
Oh, yeah, probably. The Bulbous Bouffant sketch was played very heavily on Dr. Demento in the 90s. Yeah. Matter of fact, I think it was his most requested spoken word piece ever.
That's amazing.
Maybe somebody's broken that record since the 90s. I don't know, but at the time it was.
Do you, what was Dr. Demento's presence in Canada? I really don't know.
He was, his syndication back then was huge. It was all over the place. He was on several stations in Canada. Oddly, not in Montreal, which is the city I live in, which is where I lived then, where I live now. But we certainly knew who he was, and we'd heard the show before. Anytime we were in Toronto doing shows there, we'd constantly hear him. And when we were out in LA, we got to meet him and actually be on his show live. So that was fun.
That's amazing. Gosh, that's super fun. I'm realizing I don't know a ton about your background, again, other than as part of a sketch group. That is the way it often is. You know, I'll interview people who are parts of a group, and then you're like, oh, this is an entire person I'm speaking with. So I want to know a little bit more about your background, and then how the group came together, and why sketch is so important that it's still a group.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I did bring all of me tonight to the interview, so
thank you so much.
There's that. Yeah, well, we got together. We were doing live comedy here in Montreal, and we got together because basically, well, first of all, live audiences were really tough. They didn't always laugh at everything, and that was hard for us. And then the college radio station, McGill, which is a university people may have heard of, got their own radio license at the time, and we just leapt at the idea of getting a radio show. Now, this was, of course, way before the days of internet and podcasts and YouTube and all that stuff, because we would have leapt on that had it been there at the time.
Right.
But yeah, so we started out there, and then we started selling stuff to the CBC, which is a big television and radio network in Canada, and we just kept going from there.
That's great. So how much of the early stuff you did together? I mean, now, was it strict sketch, or was there any improv?
No, it was strictly sketch. Always sketch. I've done a lot of improv, but that's outside of the Vestibules. But as far as we go, everything was very, very heavily scripted and rehearsed and planned out, and we wouldn't have it any other way.
Is there anything from the radio days that appeared on albums, or that you maybe have lost? Those are always the stories that make me cringe, but I'm always curious to know.
No, fortunately we're really anal. So we got everything. We got some of our we have our earliest shows on from Radio McGill, which are incredibly primitive things when you listen to them today. We still have them. As a matter of fact, coming up next month, November 26th, will mark the 30th anniversary of the airing of the first Vestibules show.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Are you going to be doing anything with that old material? I mean, do people get to hear this stuff?
Yeah. Actually, on vestibules.com, we have downloads where you can get, I think, a lot of it.
I saw you do have so much stuff there. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of it's our very early radio stuff. And on November 26th, my plan is to get a recording, which I still have somewhere, of the very first show, and I'm going to put it up on YouTube at 7:45 p.m. Eastern time, because that will have been the time that we aired.
I love it. That's so good.
Yeah.
Honestly, it would take too much to explain why, but I mean, I've got my own comedy group, sort of, and I love when people are that attached to their own stuff and like their own work that much, especially like going back that far. Some people don't always, they kind of dismiss the old work rather than kind of appreciate where they've come from and gone to.
We don't dismiss it. We cringe at it at times.
Of course.
That's so primordial. But I definitely still have a soft spot for it.
Yeah. I mean, but that's part of it. I mean, the cringing is part of the enjoyment for me, looking back on my old garbage. Man, that's so much fun. I again, like I said, I love that there's so much, and I will just tell people now, we don't normally do the plugs at the beginning, but go to the vestibules.com. There's so much stuff up there. A lot of that early primitive stuff, you can get it. That's so good. Let's skip back to Monty Python. The American experience tends to be, Monty Python, we discovered it in the early to mid 70s because it was on PBS here. I don't know how early it came to Canada. I'm assuming earlier. I'm assuming the nerds started there a little bit earlier than we did, but I don't know. Maybe you can give me a picture of that.
Well, I certainly know a lot about the history of nerd culture in Canada, I can tell you that. Well, one of the great things about Canada is we get American media and British media at the same time. So we were getting TV from both sides. So we actually got Monty Python almost at the same time as it was airing on the BBC originally.
Amazing.
So late 60s into the early 70s. Matter of fact, Paul Paré, who's in the Vestibules, actually saw Python live. They toured across Canada when the show was still running.
Oh, my God.
This would have been like 1970, roughly, something like that. Actually saw them live at a venue called Place des Arts, or Place des Arts, as George Carlin used to call it, here in Montreal.
That's phenomenal. See, that's not a thing that I think you're going to hear a lot from an American. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but there is a bonus to that cultural exchange that is just good due to your inevitable connection. That's so good. And
we got Doctor Who way earlier too.
Of course, of course you did. Yeah, again, like I said, I think we talked about Hitchhiker's Guide a couple weeks ago, and my guest was an American, and so same story as with Python. Like we seem to just get this huge influx of all the English stuff at once, and to have it roll out at about the same time, it was being released. That's it does explain the Canadian influence on comedy even more.
Yeah, we get the best of both worlds, and then we are by nature sponges. None of that. Yeah.
I mean, this we've talked about it a lot. Without Canadian comedy, it's interesting to hear you talk about again, having the English and the American at the same time. Just without Canadian comedy, there would be no American comedy as we know it of the 70s and 80s, and I wonder if that cultural exchange has anything to do with it, or if it's just the fact that Canadian comedy is unique. What do you have a thought on that, or am I just up my own butt about that?
No. Nobody's up their own butt about Canadian stuff. I'm just not used to. No, it's very rare that I run into Americans who know as much about us. But what I would say is this. Yeah, I think it's because we have sort of an outsider's kind of view of it. Like we're watching American culture, and we're watching jokes about the president, but it's not our president,
Sure, yeah.
And so there's that kind of thing. And there's also, and British stuff, it's the same thing. We're getting jokes about the Queen and the mail service and all that stuff that Python used to love to make jokes about. And we don't really know what it is. We know what it is from the way they describe it, the same way we know about the U.S. from the way it's described to us on American TV. Mm-hmm. So we kind of see it as outsiders, and I think maybe that gives us an advantage in terms of satire and parody. We see it with different eyes.
Yeah, it's a different level of, or a different type of irreverence that is huge. I mean, it's so important. I mean, again, I'll just talk about a little bit more about Americans being up their own butts. I think maybe without that Canadian influence, it would be harder to make fun of ourselves. I could be wrong, but that does feel like that's part of the influence.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a number of Americans who are very good at making fun of America.
To be sure, to be sure.
Any Canadian influences, there's quite a few, but George Carlin comes to mind. I mean, I think he was the master of that. It does. It certainly does add to the landscape. It adds to the richness of the satire.
Yeah. So when you first, what's your first memory of Monty Python, or your first experience that you know of?
I remember I was watching them, and they used to air. And now I'm a little, honestly, I'm an older guy, but I'm a little too young to have seen Python when it aired.
Sure.
They used to run them on the CBC in Canada, kind of late at night. Mm-hmm. And I remember waking up, falling asleep on the couch watching TV, and waking up to one of Terry Gilliam's animation pieces. I didn't know it was that at the time.
Right.
And my first thought was, is this on TV or am I dreaming? Because those things are just so surreal and so bizarre.
Oh, that's amazing. And
it was the one where, I remember it well, it was the one where there's the animation is, there's a guy pulls a gun on another guy, comes out of an alley and pulls a gun and says, "Put your hands up." And then the guy puts 2 hands up, and then he puts 2 more hands up, and then and finally he's got like 8 arms, and then he just crushes the mugger with all of his 8 arms. You probably remember that. And that was the one I was like, whoa, and then I thought that there's almost too much logic to that for it to be a dream. Right. So this is probably real. Yeah. And then I started watching it from there. And soon managed to make contact with all of my geeky friends about it, and we were following it as much as we possibly could, because they ran it when they ran it in reruns in Canada. They ran it really weird times. It was on like 11:30 Friday nights, and then like 8:30 a.m. Sunday mornings. It was It was a challenge to keep up with. So. And we did.
That's insane. I love that so much. So how deep then into your love of Python and appreciating of Python did this particular album come in? Was this the first Python album you had or listened to, or is it just one that you love particularly?
It's one that I really loved and have come back to a lot over the years. I think a friend of mine had one of the other. I think there's an earlier one before that.
Yeah, this is their 4th album.
Yeah. There's an earlier one, and I remember being amazed because I just figured, it's sketches from the show that they've just put on album.
Right.
And it's entirely, I mean, there is a little bit of some sketches from the show, but it's almost all new material and written, and they, written especially for the medium. They clearly understand the medium of audio comedy, of just audio comedy. Yeah. Like who the people who are working on that, them and their producers. And when we started doing stuff on CBC radio, I was like, let's track down who produced those Monty Python albums. Yeah. Let's track them down, fly them over. Let's get them to. It couldn't happen, of course. But that was my first thought, was let's get them to do this, because whoever produced those albums understands. I'm assuming they worked in radio at some point. Understands radio comedy innately.
I can tell you, so I don't know how much of the deep dive you've done into the production of those albums since, but Andre Jackman, who's the primary producer on all the albums.
Yes, yeah.
When he started, he was 17 when he started on these albums. That's the thing that
Wow.
blows my mind. Doing it in a shed in his backyard.
Wow. That you don't hear.
Right. Yeah, no, people don't talk about it. I will, to anybody listening, not to pimp my own thing, but it was a lot of fun. He did do the podcast like a year and a half or so ago.
Oh, cool.
And it was just, my jaw was on the floor the whole time. And when I managed to pick it up, I did get a few good questions in, but I didn't know that he was 17 when he had started work. So, by the time this one comes around, he's still only in his early 20s. It hurts my brain.
Yeah. And he was outside of the show, too. I mean, he didn't work on the TV show. He just came to the albums, as I understand it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And to hear him talk about, there's some scraps sitting around somewhere of lines we didn't use in the Life of Brian song. And I'm like, what do you mean scraps sitting around? Where are they and how do we hear them? Because that's the stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, what did you know about this album coming in? For those who don't know, it's got the 3 tracks or the 3
That's what
grooves.
attracted me to it.
Okay.
It's when I heard that it's got 3 sides.
Uh-huh.
And it's actually only one out record,
Mm-hmm.
except it's got 3 sides because of the grooves. And that was what really attracted me to it. And I remember sitting at home playing it, and maybe a lot of people listened to it did this, where you'd put the needle down and it's like, oh no, it started that side again. Then you put it down again. Oh no, it started that side again. And you just keep playing with it until it played the side that you wanted.
Yeah. I love that there are two experiences you can have with it, and I think they're both equally valid and equally great. One is you can be surprised and pissed off and confused because you didn't know what was happening. And the other is you're totally in on the joke. And that's also a delight because all you get to do is fantasize about how pissed off those other poor suckers were. And I think that's kind of great.
Yeah, that wasn't me because I remember seeing the sticker. They had a sticker on it when I bought it, and it said 3 sides, and it had some kind of joke to that effect. But I don't really remember what it is. But so I knew going in.
That's amazing. I didn't even know that was a thing. I remember
I used to play it on my college radio show. I used to play because I used to love to play the song where they're talking about medieval agrarian practices, and it's all done in early 70s rock music.
Uh-huh.
And the historian sounds like he's just some musician who's possibly high or something. He's going, yeah, they would do boon work, And I would love to play that on my college radio show, and it always took a few tries to cue it up so that it would hit the right groove. Because that was one of the tracks. You had to be in the right groove to get it to play.
So I'm sorry, and I forget. So we go back. So your college radio show, you had a college radio show just for sketches? Just a regular show first, and then it went into.
Yeah, this was before Vestibules. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I was just like a DJ, and it was you play whatever you want kind of thing. So I'd be playing I'd be playing Gang of Four and all these alternative early '80s alternative bands. Einstrack and Newbotten, and I'm not even sure, I couldn't even pronounce them then, and those kind of things. And then I'd throw in Python, and I'd throw in, some other weird thing. I'd throw in that song that came with a Mad magazine that had a vinyl.
Yes. Oh my God. Was it It's a Gas, or was it one of the other ones?
It was Making Out.
Oh, that one. Yeah, there we go. I still, everybody talks about it, and I have never heard it. And that's my fault.
Got it.
It's got to be on YouTube or something.
I used to play that in between, the Clash, and and this was the Clash before they really broke out mainstream. And
that's so good.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. So was this an album then was this all to yourself, or did you share this with friends or family? What was the experience in listening to this?
This one was largely to myself. I would sometimes play it for friends, but it was mostly my experience, and it's actually been one that I go back to a lot. Like I said, I played it on my college radio show, and every once in a while I'll hear it again. I actually listened to it again this morning in preparation for this, so that it would all be fresh in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I come back to it from time to time, and. One thing I was noticing this morning is that the writing is just so good.
Yeah. It's ridiculously tight. I actually,
Yeah.
I've been given shit for this before. When they do repeat sketches from the show, I actually like the album versions better than the TV show. Much as I love the show, and I'm a big nerd for my Monty Python, but I honestly like the album versions better.
Yeah, me too. And you can appreciate it more. And it's almost as if a lot of those sketches were written with the idea that there are going to be people at home playing these over and over and over again. You're going to be having multiple listens because it feels like it was produced and written with that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And in just the kind of the sound depth in almost everything, obviously you get to play with stereo, which was not a thing on TV yet. That's huge. That's something we've never even talked about before, because we frequently mention, hey, no VCR, so of course, yeah, they had records. But the fact that you had the opportunity for stereo sound in comedy is massive.
Yeah. We used to have tape decks with mics, and we'd hold it up to the TV speakers to record shows. Mm-hmm. That's what I used to do. And I did it with the Python shows. I had like 7 episodes of Mission Impossible, just the audio. It's very bizarre, and we would listen to it over and over again because there weren't VCRs, but the demand for the VCR was totally there. Mm-hmm. Just filling it any way we could.
Of course, yeah. Is that do you think, and this is getting deep into it, but do you think it was as much a comfort thing as it was an entertainment thing? Like, I really love the show, or was it really nice to just have that thing that you knew you could relax to while you listened?
Yeah, I think it was that. I think it was also, some of that stuff was just so great that you wanted to just relive it again and again. Mm-hmm. It's a thing with kids too. I mean, I was kind of young at the time,
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm talking like I was 8, 9 years old, and repetition is huge at that age, right? So I think it's about that. I think it's about you wanted to have comfort for that. Because you had no control over what you could watch when. It was you were in the room when the thing broadcasts, or you weren't.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what created what we know as nerd culture. Like, just, first of all, this huge desire to have everything accessible, and then just reaching out to the depths of your knowledge of technology, which at the time, and I did that too, recording shit off a TV with your cassette recorder. And just like, how can I figure this out? How can I have it all in front of me and accessible? And I love hearing stories about how people kind of found a way around the natural limitations, or seeming natural limitations, of technology at the time. And it does a lot, goes back to this.
Oh yeah, I actually invented, I think, what was the first improv game without realizing what it was, because we used to love Mission Impossible so much. And they'd have those opening credits where they'd have all the clips from the show, right? Mm-hmm. So we had a recording that we made off TV of the theme song, and then we would act out all these different fight scenes and stuff like that to it. And we just come up with that. And then we try and come up with an episode where all that stuff that we just did fit in, which is like the basis of an improv game. Really, absolutely. I didn't know that at the time. Wasn't doing improv yet, but
right. That's amazing. I love that shit. That's my favorite stuff to do as a kid. I like too that there's so many comedian stories that are, again, very similar. Where it's like, I didn't have anything necessarily to entertain me enough, or like, this thing entertained me so much I wanted to be a part of it, so I kind of made that happen for myself.
Yeah, and it wasn't like, today my friends who have kids, they're driving them to soccer practice, and then they're going to the museum, and then they've got their art group, and then they've mm-hmm. It's like, we didn't have, it was TV. That's it.
Was there, what was the value, if any, placed on comedy in your family?
Not that much.
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah. That was really my thing. My brother introduced me to George Carlin. My older brother.
Awesome.
It introduced me to George Carlin. That much I gotta give you. But other than that, and it was something like, and even that was like a, don't tell mom and dad this.
Sure.
That I'm letting you listen to this guy, right? So So, but other than that, no, it wasn't really something that it was really my thing. And you probably hear this from a lot of comics. It's something, it was as the youngest kid, which a lot of comedians are the youngest kid. It was my own unique way of getting attention because there was no other way to do it.
Mm-hmm. But just specifically from acting out, did you just
acting out or coming up with my own stuff?
Okay.
At that time, other people's material tended to be stronger than mine.
Uh-huh.
I would shamelessly steal from my favorites, but everybody starts somewhere, right?
Yeah, well, that's also the same. I love that story too. Everybody's got either a really fantastic fun story or a fun and super embarrassing story about how they kind of stole their first material, and I love those stories.
Yeah. We did at my junior high school variety show, we did, and nobody knew this stuff, we did George Carlin's whole news thing as if it was our own. And one kid came up to me afterwards and said, "That's from a George Carlin album, isn't it?" I said, Yes, it is. But that was and everyone just assumed. We never said we wrote it, but everyone just assumed that we did. And it killed too, because it was, it's awesome material.
That's amazing. I mean, it's like in your head though, it's logically it's sound because, bands cover songs. So if you're a kid, what's wrong with covering somebody's comedy? It makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And it wasn't until I really got into doing comedy and hanging out with other comedians and being in clubs and seeing shows and where I realized just what a despicable act stealing material is truly considered amongst comedians. And at that time I went, okay, I'm not mentioning the George Carlin thing when I was 13. But yeah.
That's so good. What, and we'll go back and forth here, but
sure.
What was the first kind of touchstone for the group, for the Vestibules? I mean, was Monty Python? I can always assume it's one of them, but you never know.
Python was huge. For me, Python was huge. And I think for Paul too. And the other big one was SCTV.
Sure.
SCTV and Monty Python were like the cornerstones of our huge influences. And then later, when we started hearing his stuff in terms of audio humor, Stan Freberg, who was also a master of audio comedy, really. Matter of fact, the first time we didn't hear the Deo song bit until we were actually a group and hearing that. I don't remember what context we heard it in. And we, where he does that thing with Deo, and it's too loud, and he has to walk out of the room and hear Deo. We must have done like 10 sketches after that where we had little like quiet, funny walking sounds turning up and all.
Oh, I love that. That's fucking fantastic. Yeah, Stan Freberg is one of those. He's actually a rare bird in terms of comedy because he's a dude who didn't start. He started from this place of, and I've confirmed it with people who knew him, genuine bitterness towards the thing he was making fun of. It was such sharp satire against something that was bringing so much joy to people, but his comedy's so good. Yeah.
Well, one of his things that I really loved that he did too was he did a fair amount of like satire of advertising.
Yeah.
And commercials and stuff. And that was a thing that I think, that I really liked. We used to do that in the Vestibules too. We would do, when we were doing CBC radio stuff, we would take current popular commercials that were running constantly, mostly Canadian ones that nobody else would know. And we'd come up with a bit on them. And we even had one person from one of the agencies that produced one of these commercials called us and wanted us for a copy of it so that they could study it.
Wow.
It's part of their ongoing market research.
Holy crap, that's amazing.
But I love that stuff. Even when you're doing silly, goofy things with the commercials, even when it's just, you're doing slapstick jokes with the commercials, I still think that's an incredibly important part of the dialogue because the advertisers are spending millions, billions of dollars on this stuff, and then three guys in their rundown apartment with with a tape recorder are taking the piss out of it, you know?
Mhm.
So I think that's an important part of the dialogue. If you're going to have advertising, you got to have people coming back at it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always admired any, especially sketch groups. Sketch groups have, I don't know if if it's necessarily a reputation, but there's sometimes a perception of sketch groups that it's just a new version of vaudeville. Maybe I feel like that's the perception. Whereas maybe satire isn't always associated with. In my head, it has always been associated with sketch, but in a lot of places, it's just, well, this is something a bunch of college kids get together and do. You know, rather than people who continue to do it for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, it is something a lot of college students get together and do, and
Absolutely.
many of them go on to, write for Saturday Night Live and write for HBO,
For sure.
So yeah, it is. Yeah, it is definitely. No, I mean, look, Saturday Night Live to this day, they're still known for their political stuff. They're still known for their ad parodies. All of which tend to be really on the nose in terms of hitting a zeitgeist and making fun of where those ads are at.
I want to go back a little bit. We'll go back to Monty Python.
Sure. Yes.
Specifically to Matching Tie. Is
Yeah.
there? Do you have a favorite track on this or favorite tracks?
Oh, yeah, absolutely my favorite track on this, and it's one of my favorite Python things ever, and I'm not really sure why this one stands out above all others, but for me, just as a personal thing, is I was talking about it earlier, was the where they're doing the BBC show on medieval agriculture, and for some reason, it's all described in song. Songs written by the amazing Neil Innes, who is another, unsung hero of Python.
For sure.
And I don't know what it is about that, and where the professors of medieval history all sound like they're like these, washed out rock musician kind of types. And there was a time when I think, in the early 70s, it wasn't as slick. You get rock stars being interviewed now, and they've got all the answers, and they've got all the sound bites, and they've been through a PR course or something. But back then, it was a lot like, because you hear the guy in that sketch who's well, they kind of do, they do, and the interviewer has to come in, and say, has to come in and finish the guy's sentence because he's just so unmedia friendly.
I love that.
And
song.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that bit, honestly. Re-listening to it. Like I said, we've only covered it once, maybe, on the show before.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and, I'd heard it once, so this is maybe the third time I've even had to listen to it. I think I grew up hearing more compilations than I did anything. But I'd completely forgotten about that one. And yeah, absolutely. Anything where Neil Innes is involved, I feel like people forget that he was there for so much of it.
Yeah, the music, they really owe a lot musically to him, for sure.
Yeah, I found out recently that he is responsible for the whistling hook in Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. I did not know that. That's him.
Yeah, eh? I know the songs in Monty Python and the Holy Grail are also him, and the Ruddles, of course.
Sure.
It's all him. And those are some brilliant Beatle parody songs.
Mm-hmm. Was there?
But yeah, and I'm trying to see what else is there on the album. The other thing, of course, it's from the show, but the Cheese Shop, because you can listen to it over and over again and appreciate all the little intricacies of the dialogue and the way it's written,
so
and
good.
the incredible turns of phrase that only John Cleese can really do justice to in the delivery. And obviously, these were the days before Google. Somebody did a great deal of research on just how many different types of cheeses there are.
I know. And how long is that track? I'm realizing I don't know, but it feels unending, but it's also so delightful. I don't want it to stop.
Yeah, I think it runs like 6 minutes or something like that, which is honestly, from doing sketch comedy on radio and live and on TV, that's an eternity.
Yeah.
6 minutes is an eternity in sketch comedy. Really, like.
It's so good. It's making me think. Okay, there is a certain skill to being able to pull the comedy out of a list. It's some of my favorite comedy. I mean, it's something that Weird Al does all the time. Monty Python also does it all the time.
It's a genre of sketch of and also getting into the real technical detail of a particular field or something like that, to the point where you know that they're talking about stuff that only people that know cheese inside out, for instance, would recognize all of these things. It's a genre of sketch, is that sort of listing and going into an arcane amount of detail about something. The Onion is really good at that. Yeah.
I also love that, when you read, I mean, there's plenty of histories on Monty Python, so they've talked about themselves, to death at this point, but listening to them or reading about them talk about they might write a sketch that sounds incredibly worldly and well read, and they'll be the first to admit that we never read a book by this person, but they knew it was a good reference, and you get shocked. But it's like, well, no, they also wrote a sketch about cheese, all of which I'm sure they hadn't necessarily eaten. It's almost the same. They treat it the same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you? I want to know feel free if there's no obvious history to this, but Bulbous Bouffant is obviously the first thing I ever heard by you gentlemen. Where does
Macadamia.
It come from?
Where does it?
Yes,
where does
it's
it
insane.
Come from? Yeah, it was. I remember the inception of it kind of well, actually. We were all in Breakfast Studios, which is where we recorded all our stuff, which is actually Bernard Denizier's apartment, by the way.
Really?
At the time. Yeah, but we called it Breakfast Studios.
Love it.
And we were there, and we started doing this sketch, and I can't remember. It started off as we would kind of improvise sketches amongst ourselves, and until we found something that worked, and then would start writing it down, which is, I still, in my book, I teach classes on sketch comedy, and I always tell my students, just start improvising, because it's the only way ideas are going to hit you. Anyway, so we started doing that, and it started off as a guy meeting a crazy guy at the bus stop, which, if anybody lives in a big city, this happens to you constantly, right?
Sure.
And so and then from there, and I don't remember who it is, somebody started riffing on, it wasn't me, it was either Paul or Bernard, it wasn't me, started riffing on the weird words that the guy would say, and then having somebody else coming back with the weird words. And then I remember coming in with Macadamia at one point, which is me, by the way. That's my big claim to fame, Macadamia. And then I think it was Bernard got this idea of multi-tracking it and just putting in all these different words and stuff. And I remember thinking, are we really going this far with that? Are you really want to go that far with this? I might lose the audience on it. But back then we were producing 15 minutes a week for college radio.
Oh my!
So, yeah, I know, and it was insane. And when we looked at that, that runs 3.5 minutes. Okay, it's in.
Uh-huh.
It was one of those things. And we put it on, and initially we weren't really so sure about it. One of our stand-up comedian friends listened to it, and he went, what are you doing, guys? What are you, that's so long. What are you doing? Where are the jokes? And so we weren't really sure. And then we started to get feedback on it from people who heard the show. People would call in after we did the shows, and then, we'd be playing it for friends, and eventually it started to get this momentum going. And so we decided to re-record it for our CBC show, and that's, I think, where it ended up on Dr. Demento, because then we decided to put it on our first CD. And because it's amazing, because the fandom of that sketch just grew and grew and grew. We would just keep getting feedback after feedback after feedback on it. And then each time we'd get a lot of feedback, we'd take it to the next level. We'd record it for CBC. We'd put it on the CD. We'd start putting it. We would actually do it live. And it actually worked really well live, which,
that's awesome.
Surprised me. Mm-hmm. Which, one of the it just reinforces the rule about comedy is nobody knows anything.
Yeah, yeah.
So the audience laughs. Really, that's what it is. So, and then Demento got it, and then I was even amazed that it was outperforming Fish Heads.
That's crazy. That's insane.
Yeah, and then I still have the CD, the Best of Demento CD that they sent us, and it's still got the shrink wrap on it because it's got that sticker that says featuring Bulbous Bouffant.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I have not been able to bring myself to open it.
I
got
understand.
another copy of it so that I could have one that I could open and listen to to keep that one in its plastic, just as it was. Yeah.
See, you are a nerd. There's no doubt when I hear something like that.
Oh my God, you can't. Yeah, you can't. You can't see the model Klingon bird of prey behind me right now.
Oh.
But yeah.
Now, I wish I still had mine, because then we could compare. Yours is probably better because I never bothered to paint mine, and I'm sure it fell apart at some point.
Oh, yeah, mine came ready-made. It was, cheated that way, yeah.
I also like about that sketch that it is uniquely Canadian. I mean, accents are unavoidable. You're going to sound Canadian. But that was part of the charm of it. But also, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't think I've ever heard an American use the word muckluck. Maybe, possibly, but I do think it's I don't know.
Yeah.
There's something about that it made it stand out.
Yeah, it's an Inuit word, I believe.
Right.
Yeah. You do actually can go into a store in Canada and say I'm looking for a pair of mucklucks, and they'll know what you mean.
For sure, yeah, that's what I assumed.
I don't know if you could do that in the mall in the U.S.
Absolutely not. I and I knew the weird thing is I knew what it was when you said it in the sketch, but then I'm like, I've never heard anybody say it. How do I know what that is? So again, I don't know. There's some weird Canadian influence that happened before that told me what that was. But that's part of
winter clothing is a huge thing for us. We have long and tough winters, and we are well versed in all of the things that keep you warm.
Yeah,
that's where it comes from.
That ends up being part of the charm, at least to Americans. And you always, who knows? We're weird. We like to absorb these things in strange ways. Did you ever?
Well, you talk about the charm.
Yeah.
You talk about the charm of the accents. It's fascinating because I spend, as an actor, because I'm also an actor, and I go out and audition for stuff, and there's a lot of American TV and movies that shoot in Montreal, and I spend so much time and effort into losing the Canadian accent because you can't go in and audition for one of those things if you're like, hey, let's go out and about. Sorry about that. You can't. You can't do that because they'll be like, okay, thank you. And it's so bizarre because a lot of people do talk about it as a very unique thing, but the first thing you learn as a Canadian actor is lose it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I get that. I mean, this is I don't know that I'd lose it. No, I would actually. If I still had my upstate New York accent, there's no way I'd be working. So it's not. No,
they don't.
I get it.
They hate regional accents, even from within the U.S. They want everybody to sound like announcers on CNN, basically.
100%. That's absolutely true. Did you ever? Okay, and I have to ask this every time I have a Canadian guest. Was there ever, doing the work you did in radio, etc., running into Canadian content issues or working around Canadian content? I'm fascinated by it because we don't have it here, obviously. But
no, and you don't even have American content.
No, we don't.
It'd be redundant because we actually have rules here, and they still stick. And even Netflix in Canada still follows these rules, which is 30% Canadian content.
Holy shit!
Yeah,
that's phenomenal.
And Netflix, technically, I'm not even sure that they have to. I don't know if they even qualify as a broadcaster, but to play it safe, they do. So, and that was a big thing on my college radio show is I always had to get 30% Canadian content in. And and you would have to put it down in the logbooks and all that. And
oh my God.
They actually would pay attention, even to like rinky-dink college radio stations. They would actually pay attention to if you weren't playing enough Canadian content. Now, on the other hand, it was a boon for our industry because we were just buried with American. Our radio was just buried with American artists.
Sure,
and a lot of it's great. So, we wouldn't, that's how we got the Tragically Hip and Cold Heart, and there's Bryan Adams. There's good and bad, Celine Dion. There's good and bad to that.
I love it. Yeah, it's one of those things that fascinates the crap out of me. I love hearing stories about it, even when people don't run into it. It's part of everyday life, and therefore it's gotta probably inform how you do everything in some small way, even if you don't realize it.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that so much. So let's hop back to Monty Python just for a minute. So we've gone over your favorite sketches. Where did you go after this album? Was it just a natural, I'll just keep watching the shows when the movies come out, I'll get those? Did you get more albums?
The albums came after the show. The albums came after you've seen all the episodes. For me, anyways, that was what it was. Mm-hmm. It was, you've seen all the episodes, and then discovering that, oh, wait, there's more on the albums. And I got to say, I didn't really own a lot of them, but I kept up with them. And I think their marketing was brilliant, too, I got to say. You had the 3-sided album. Then there was another album that I saw in the store that a friend of mine bought just for the cover, because the cover of it was of Herbert von Karajan conducts the Berlin Philharmonic, Beethoven's number 3, and then this big crayon X'd out, and then another Monty Python album written across it in crayon. That was brilliant. There was also the instant record collection that would fold out into a cardboard, and that into a cardboard record collection, and then you could go through and read every single title.
It's amazing.
Of all of these albums, and that's hours of writing. I mean,
right?
to get like 30 good, funny album titles, and the more my brain hurts by the Moron Tabernacle Choir, which I thought was brilliant at the time. It is still. So yeah, I mean that's what really attracted me to the albums, was they were so good at not just because they were Python, but they got your attention, and they were still, even their last album was called Monty Python's Contractual Obligation, which it was.
Right.
They didn't want to do any more albums, and the record company looked at the contract and said, well, wait, you owe us one more. Mm-hmm. And so they did it, and they titled it exactly that. So they were just brilliant in the way that they sold these things.
Yeah. I love this sort of implied laziness about that, just like you said, crossed out title, and it looks like it's a bunch of bullshit. But like, they went through, they searched for art, they put so much time into it. It's so loving, but to also make it look like it's,
it wasn't even, I think I saw this in a documentary somewhere, it wasn't even an actual album. Somebody went and designed a classical music album cover that looked like it would be a real thing, just so that they could put X's through it. So the whole thing was designed to be that.
It's beautiful.
It's amazing.
That's art. I mean, that's the art of a good sketch comedy album. And again, I do sometimes sound like just an old man when I talk about these things that I wish we could still do, but it's just because it's so interactive, so heavily interactive, that's the one thing I miss is this kind of personal involvement with the thing that you just bought.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now you can, their whole library is on Spotify. You can just a couple of clicks and you're listening to it, which is great, but you kind of miss some of the experience of it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or you can get it on iTunes and it downloads in 10 seconds. But you all that album packaging stuff, it's, a little tiny graphic on your phone.
Mm-hmm. Have any of you in the group had opportunities to meet or work with any of the guys from Monty Python?
Let's see. A lot of them played at the Just for Laughs festival here in Montreal.
Sure.
I didn't get to see them. Graham Chapman, I almost talked to. He played one of the early ones, and it's one of the biggest regrets of my life, because there was this party afterwards, and I think it was the very first festival we ever played in. Mm-hmm. And there was this big party afterwards, and that festival then and now was largely dominated by Americans. And Graham Chapman clearly didn't know anybody there. You'd have the occasional comic would come over and say, it's great to meet you, and then they go away. And just kind of standing, it was just sort of this weird wallflower at this party that, every once in a while somebody would come over and shake his hand and then go away because he didn't really know anybody. And I was very young and I was very shy, and he was standing there, and I never got the guts to get together to and talk to him. And you know what? This is the horrible part, is within a year he had died after that. Yeah.
I mean, what are you gonna do? Like, that's the thing is, also, if you know that you're gonna make an ass of yourself, you probably did yourself a favor. It's so hard to know.
Oh, I know, and I had a couple of bad experiences approaching other comics.
Oh no.
And some of those American guys, I'm not gonna name names, but some of those American guys he was on Homicide. Some of those American guys are really arrogant.
Well, I mean, I'm in no way surprised to hear that at all. But yeah, it's hard. I mean, that's, I sometimes give people what I think for some people is bad advice, and like, I actually don't mind meeting your heroes. I've yet to have a bad experience, but who knows? That could be because most of the time they're on microphone and they know they're being recorded. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's very difficult.
Yeah. And when they don't know you and you're just some, it can be tough.
It can be very tough. But you know what? Hey, you were. Did you physically see him in person though?
Yeah, I saw his show too.
That's
he hosted
amazing.
He hosted a show, and he did one of the most wonderful things I've ever seen. I don't know where it came from. It was just, and he was basically he did like 10 minutes at the beginning. He was introducing acts the whole show, kind of thing, and he'd do the occasional sketch or something. And at one point, he came up between acts, and he had this plastic shopping bag. And he just stood there and he said, and now it's time to throw the fish. And he reached into the bag and he had actual fish, dead fish, that he just chucked into the audience.
Oh, my God.
Just like he must have chucked like 10 of them into the audience. And people were variously laughing or freaked out or like, get that thing away from me. Or yay, free fish, It was really, and I thought that was one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen a comic do, because it was just so simple.
Oh, that's brilliant. But at the very least, like, who cares? You didn't get to meet him, but you got to see him live and do something fucking phenomenal. That's so good.
Yeah, and something that doesn't exist on tape anywhere that I know of.
Oh, right. Yeah, good call. Yeah, that's a solid memory to have of the first we lost. I mean, that's amazing. Yeah. All right, so here's what I want to do is I always like, towards the end of the show, I like to have by the way, I could talk to you for hours, but I don't want to keep you forever. So
that's all right. I have Halloween decorations to put up.
Well,
so,
see, there you go. I mean, what are you going to do? If you're going to condense why to listen to the Monty Python Matching Tie and Handkerchief into a few sentences, let's say somebody doesn't know Monty Python, maybe, or they've never heard one of their albums, why give this one a listen?
Boy, all I can think of is it's really good. It's really funny. Mm-hmm. It's some of the most innovative comedy that you'll ever hear, and it's one of the rare pieces of comedy that gets better with multiple listenings. And that me listening to it, I don't know, what is it now, 30, 40 years since the first time I heard it. I was listening to it in the car this morning, and I was still laughing out loud at it.
It's perfect. It's perfect. Anything that ages as well as a cheese, it's worth listening to. And I particularly love this one. I'm glad we got to talk about it again. Okay, this is going to come out in a few weeks. Okay. I can't give you an exact date because I'm an idiot. But actually, right. I could be a lie. You might actually come out next. I can't remember. But let's presume a week or two. Where can people find you? What do you want to promote, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, unless you want to come see some live shows in Montreal, I'm appearing at the Montreal Improv Festival next week.
Okay.
So if anybody happens to be in town and has a time machine, because it'll be over by then, mm-hmm. Go see those, because they're great shows. Well, there's my website, terencebowman.com. There's the Vestibules.com. Go to that for sure, because mm-hmm. If you're a fan or you want to discover us, we're there. There's also Vestibules Facebook page. November 26th, the 30th anniversary of the first Vestibules airing, our very first show, will be going up on YouTube. That's a plan that I had, and it's one that I'm committed to now because I've said it.
I love it. That's so good.
Yeah.
Have you ever? I haven't found them, so I'm assuming no. Have you ever released an album on vinyl?
No.
Damn it.
No. We thought about doing it after the fact now that vinyl's big, but
Sure.
it was, and even putting out, it was expensive to do that back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I know some bands who went bankrupt doing that because they were expensive to do. And actually, even just putting out a CD in 1994 was
Sure.
a monumental process. Hard to believe. Yeah. Even when we did our second one in 2002, it was way easier. And even that's 10 times more complicated than it would be today.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, we didn't do vinyl. We were too late for that. And it's a thought, though. It's a thought because
it absolutely is
back in a big way.
Yeah, no, it's huge, and I love every once in a while you'll get a new vinyl album that people have actually taken the time to not just slap together. I mean, it's fine if you want to just make a sleeve, great, but like there's some great stuff like the Bob's Burgers music album is phenomenal. It's like
I've heard that on Spotify. It's
a great album.
Yeah, that I can't stop listening to where they do a combination musical of Die Hard and Working Girl. And it's like, that's another thing. You want to talk contemporary stuff. That's another thing that survives multiple listenings. I saw the episode when it aired, and I can listen to that song over and over again.
It's brilliant, and they did a really good job putting together not just the album, but if you get the big box set that comes with this ridiculous amount of extra shit.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's really involved. It's not something I could have afforded. It's something I lucked into because I interviewed the creator of the show. But it's phenomenal. It's a really good.
I'll consider it for my Christmas list.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's real good. Well, thank you so much for doing the show.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
I'd love to have you back either by Skype or if you happen to find yourself down in LA for some reason, in which case
not
I'm
as
sorry.
much these days. Used to go down. I used to be down there a lot, but not as much anymore. But if it ever happens, I will let you know.
All right. Well, again, thank you for being here, you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I'm trying to think. You know what, guys? Go to stolendress.com/celerysound. That's my tiny sketch comedy record label that is barely a record label, but you know what? I've got some of my own stuff on there, so you guys go there. Check that out. I rarely promote anything, so go there. That's about it. Thank you guys for listening, and as always, have a good thing. Comedy on Vinyl is a production of Stolen Dress Entertainment. It is produced by Mike Warden and is hosted and edited by Jason Klamm. Our theme song was composed and performed by Richard Levinson. Please visit stolendress.com to listen to our other podcasts, read our blogs, read our tweets, watch our videos, and read our books. Please subscribe on iTunes, and if you like us, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. You can find us on Facebook.com/ComedyOnVinyl, Twitter @ComedyOnVinyl, and find everything else at ComedyOnVinyl.com. A major portion of Comedy on Vinyl has been underwritten by Stand Up Records. Please visit StandUpRecords.com for all your comedy needs and tune into the new Stand Up channel available on the Roku, where you can also find select episodes of this podcast.